Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, today is a very special day. You are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. I am your host, Sebastian Stratton, joined alongside my always amazing co-host, Mr. Nick Supa. Nick, I see a Yankee jersey today that you are wearing. Today is a very special day. I think it's time, before we get into everything, first of all, how are you doing today?
Great, Sebastian. And I think you know, and everybody else knows, why I'm in such a good mood, you're in such a good mood. We have an amazing event that starts today.
We do have that amazing event. Nick, I'm going to throw it over to you. Let's give the drum roll.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today is MLB opening day of 2025.
We are here. We have made it. After about a month of spring training, the World Series ending in late October, we are back. There is so much to look forward to, from the new rookies coming into the league to the seasoned veterans looking to make a name for themselves, and some teams out there with a vengeance. And Nick, first of all, I have a question. I see you have a Yankee jersey on. Tell the folks, what jersey is it?
I am wearing the reigning AL MVP Aaron Judge jersey.
And I do have to ask, is Judge's last name on the jersey, or are you keeping with the Yankee tradition of no last name?
The tradition is staying with no name, just the number, as always, like the Yankees have done their entire career. So at least that's one thing that is staying the same, unlike their beard policy that has changed.
I am very glad to hear that, and I think because it is opening day, all the teams are starting out today 0-0, except for the Dodgers and the Cubs. They played 2 games last week in the Tokyo series. The Dodgers won that series. They are now 2-0 on the season, and the Chicago Cubs are 0-2. But Nick, since today is opening day and there is a lot to talk about today, I think it's only right if we take a jump forward to October and talk about how the season is going to shape up, and specifically the 12 playoff teams, and 3 in the American League, the division winners, 3 wild cards, and the same for the National League, 3 division winners and 3 wild cards. So we will start off in the American League East, 5 teams to choose from. Nick, I'll let you kick this thing off. Who do you have winning the American League East in Major League Baseball for the 2025 season?
It's definitely going to be a tough one, I would say, but I'm going to pick the Orioles because they got some young talent that's building in that organization. They came close last year. The Yankees ended up winning the division, and I think the Yankees will kind of make it a close one. They always seem to just make the playoffs or just miss the playoffs, that was what happened in 2023. So we'll see what happens, but I think this year it's the Baltimore Orioles winning the AL East division.
I like it. Bold right off the bat. The Baltimore Orioles, according to Nick Supa, will be your division winners. And I am going to pick, I'm doing it. Yes, folks, I'm doing it. Call me crazy. I'm going with the Boston Red Sox. I think they took that edge this offseason over the Yankees. They acquired Alex Bregman. Their lineup is so deep, led off by Jarren Duran, Rafael Devers, who manager Alex Cora said is going to be the permanent DH for this season. Whether that causes any craziness in the clubhouse is yet to be seen, because Rafael Devers has expressed his not wanting to be a designated hitter. He said he's a third baseman, but the stats do speak for themselves. Alex Bregman was and is a much better third baseman defensively. Devers is definitely a better hitter, but man, looking at this Red Sox lineup, there's a lot to like. You have Bregman in the 3-hole, Tristan Casas 4, Trevor Story, if he stays healthy, he can be a potent option in that 5-hole. But specifically, we talk about in a long season, 162 games, you need your lineup to be deep, and that's why I love the Red Sox catcher, Connor Wong, batting 8th. When you have someone batting 8th who last year hit .250 with 13 home runs, brings a lot to the table, 24 doubles, and you don't have a lot of pressure, you set the table for that top of the lineup, that Jarren Duran, a lot of options. And looking forward to the bullpen, that, Nick, I have to say, those Yankee-Red Sox games, if Boston, hopefully they're not leading going into the bottom of the ninth, but Aroldis Chapman, imagine him coming into a game.
That sounds familiar.
2 outs, bases loaded, facing Aaron Judge. That would be one interesting story. And the rotation. I love this rotation. The top 3 is pretty elite, Nick. Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler. The Red Sox are looking very good. So I think they are going to be very scary. I think they steal the division from the Yankees, and Alex Cora's team regains its crown. So that will be the American League East. And back over to you, Nick. Give it to us, the American League Central.
Well, I think it's always unpredictable to say who's going to win the American League Central, but as we saw last season, there were a couple teams that came up with some young talent, like the Royals and the Tigers. And of course, we saw a team like the Tigers in the first round. They knocked out the Houston Astros in a 2-0 sweep, which I don't think anybody expected. But I'm going to be picking the Kansas City Royals to win the American League Central Division in the 2025 season.
I like it. I like it.
You do?
I do like it. I think that's definitely the right option, and it's also the option I chose. I think the Royals, they went to the playoffs last year. Not a lot of expectations under manager Matt Quinchero. He was a guy, he brought a team, not going to say they were a bunch of nobodies, but they were role players surrounded by one guy in Bobby Witt Jr., who was one of the favorites to be the American League MVP this year. But this is not a bunch of nobodies. This is a very solid lineup with a good combination of hitting, pitching. Of course, it starts with Bobby Witt Jr. in that 2-hole, Jonathan India leading off. But there are some veterans. It's a good combination. I think you need that in any major league lineup. Veterans paired with rookies. You have Hunter Renfroe, 33 years old. He's in your 6-hole playing right field. Salvador Perez, he's your catcher batting fourth. And this bullpen, I really am a fan of this Royals bullpen. I think they're, oh, look at that, Nick. Here we have something on Fangraphs. Chris Stratton, my long-lost cousin. Thank you. He's on the Royals this year. I actually remember him. He pitched for the Pirates, so my long-lost cousin, Chris Stratton, he's on the Royals bullpen. But Lucas Erceg, the Royals closer, we saw him a little bit in the playoffs last season. He's very elite. He has a great fastball slider mix, throwing up to 100 miles an hour. He's a guy similar to Luke Weaver when he was on his game last season. When you put him in and you have to get 3 outs, he's going to get the job done. And that's what you need with a closer. You can't have a Clay Holmes who was not really great for the Yankees. He actually lost his closer role to Luke Weaver. And that starting rotation, very good from the top, starting with Seth Lugo, that veteran ace. He's a great presence. Michael Walker, 33 years old, and Michael Lorenzen from the Texas Rangers in a trade last July. When he's healthy, Nick, as your 5 starter, throwing 95 miles an hour, I like it. I think this Royals team is gritty. They steal bases, and they do the little things correctly to secure victory. So that will be the American League Central. And our last division champion in the American League East, the West. We're heading over west. Nick, I know we're in New Jersey, but give me the West.
Well, moving over to the other side, onto the West Coast now in the American League, this was an interesting one, Sebastian, because I was having a tough decision between 3 teams, honestly. The Rangers, the Astros, and the Mariners. And the Mariners, I thought, well, maybe they could. They got Julio Rodriguez. They got a pretty good lineup. They got solid pitching. And then it came between the Rangers and Astros. And obviously, last year, after the way things turned out for the Astros, they started off 12-24 in the first 36 games in last place in their division, and they ended up winning the division, coming all the way back, and they made it to the playoffs. They clinched the division, but as we just mentioned, they got swept in the wild card by the Detroit Tigers. But now you're looking at an Astros team without Alex Bregman. He's on the Boston Red Sox now. So I find that a huge downgrade for the Astros. So I find them not winning the division. No, I find the other team down in Texas winning the American League West. And that, my friends, is the Texas Rangers.
Really? The Texas Rangers, okay. Your 2024 World Series champions. they're out for vengeance, still under Bruce Bochy. They had a down year last year. They kind of struggled off that World Series. They didn't return to the playoffs in their entirety. They struggled mightily. I have to ask, why the Rangers?
Honestly, I mean, they have good pitching rotation. I mean, DeGrom is still on that team, right? They got Jacob DeGrom, and we know how his career was with the Mets. And I think they still have Nathan Eovaldi. Yeah, they have Nathan Eovaldi on the Rangers. They got pitching like that. And as far as I know, Corey Seager is still on the team. Yes, that is correct. Corey Seager is still on the Texas Rangers. And they also got Garcia. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I apologize. I forgot your first name.
Adolis Garcia.
Adolis Garcia. Thank you, Sebastian. I appreciate it. So they got pretty solid hitters. They got, I think, solid pitching. And will they get it together? You don't know. I mean, who knows? It could be the Mariners, for all we know, that end up winning the division. And I think that could happen. But I think the Rangers are going to win it.
I love how, first of all, you mentioned Jacob DeGrom. If he stays healthy, he's the best pitcher in baseball, point blank, period. But the question is, does he stay healthy? We see the fastball running up to 98 miles an hour. And Nick, how crazy is it? Back in the 70s, 80s, Jacob DeGrom, his averaged slider, yes, folks, slider velocity, is 92 miles per hour. And Justin Verlander's brother, Ben Verlander, who is a reporter for MLB Network, he was giving a take about how he was, I guess, speaking negatively about one of the teams in the league, and a fan on X said, "Hey Ben, you were talking all this stuff negatively. Why don't you go out and play?" And he responded. He gave a one-word answer: 92 mile per hour sliders. So it just goes to show you how elite pitching really is in Major League Baseball. And if Jacob DeGrom stays healthy, he is going to be very, very good. But I am going to not disagree, but I am going to take the other team in Texas. I'm taking the Houston Astros.
All right.
I think they are very underrated, actually. That lineup, I know they lost Alex Bregman, as you mentioned, but they still have Jose Altuve setting the table, 300-plus hitters, 20 home runs, and they went out there, they did make some moves. Isaac Paredes from the Cubs in a trade last December, and Christian Walker, a free agent from Arizona. This lineup is very, very deep. Yordan Alvarez, don't forget him in that 3-hole. And Jeremy Pena, I think the world kind of forgot about Pena. He was a World Series MVP. He's your starting shortstop in your 6-hole. He's a guy with this lineup. He can be a very good option. Now, the starting rotation does worry me a little bit. Not from a Yankee fan's perspective. I hope the starting rotation crashes and falls. But from a baseball fan perspective, led by Framber Valdez, Hunter Brown, only 26 years old. He's very good, running that fastball up to 97 miles an hour. And the bullpen, kind of a tag team duo right there. Josh Hader and Brian Abreu. Hader will be your closer, and then Brian Abreu. But I think this lineup carries them all the way. I think they overtake the Rangers and win the American League West. So Nick, I'll let you decide. Should we jump to our National League winners, or should we stay in the American League and finish and round out the wild card?
I say we wrap it up with the AL wild card. What do you say?
I like that idea. So, I'll let you start it off. Kick it off. 3 wild card teams make it.
3 wild card teams. Well, for the first one, I actually predicted in the top wild card spot the team you picked to win the AL East division. And it also pains me to say it, but they do have a pretty solid team, I would say, on the pitching side and the hitters that they have in the lineup. I'm going with the Boston Red Sox as my first choice in the AL wild card.
I like it. I think either way, the Red Sox are going to make it. They're very solid, as we mentioned. Good pick. But for my top wild card spot, I'm taking the Yankees. I think they make their way in. The biggest thing for the Yankees, you lose Stanton, you lose Garrett Cole. Can you stay afloat until July, the Major League Baseball trade deadline, and keep yourselves up there for General Brian Cashman to potentially go out there and make some moves? That's the biggest question. I like the Yankees lineup, though. I really do. It's young, led by Aaron Judge, who will be batting second, Cody Bellinger in the 3-hole. But what worries me, and it's crazy to think about, Nick, Marcus Stroman coming into spring training, we mentioned him. He wasn't even on the projected starting rotation. He was someone that said, I'm not going to the bullpen, I want to be a starter. He goes from completely being out of the question to your number 3 starter, and behind him is Will Warren, who had a good spring training, but he had his woes making his Major League Baseball debut last year with a 10-plus ERA, and 38-year-old Carlos Carrasco as your 5 pitcher. So, very interesting there. I do have the Yankees in that first wild card spot. Nick, kicking it back over to you, second wild card spot.
Second wild card spot. This one also pains me to say this, but I'm going to follow it up with who you predicted as well as the AL West Division winners, and I'm picking the Houston Astros to sneak in there, maybe not win the division, but again, even with the loss of Alex Bregman, it's just that team. There's something about the Astros where no matter who they lose, no matter who gets traded, who signs a contract with another team, the Astros just somehow find a way to either win the division or just make the playoffs and be a huge asset in this organization and a team that you always got to watch out for in the playoffs that could be super competitive.
No doubt. No matter who they have, I feel like as long as they have Jose Altuve, not saying it's a one-man game, but I think he always finds a way, and the Astros are always dominant. So far, Nick, I think we're on the same page. Different teams in different orders, but we have the right idea.
We do.
So, for my second wildcard team, I'm not happy at all with what they've done in free agency. I don't think they did enough, but this lineup is too good with too many powerful hitters. I'm going with the Orioles. Your American League East winner. The Orioles are still the Orioles, led by Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, who's actually going to start the season on the injured list. So, best wishes to him. Hopefully he recovers because as a baseball fan, it's so fun to watch him play baseball. But they did make a move, I guess if you want to say. They got Tyler O'Neill from the Red Sox in December as a free agent, Cedric Mullins, and we mentioned Jackson Holliday in that 9 poll. Nick, you do not get drafted first overall for a reason in Major League Baseball. He definitely struggled making his way, finding a groove, but he is a very potent hitter, and we've seen the dominance at AA and AAA. If he finds a way to get it going and contribute as a second baseman, only 21 years old, the kid's still young. I felt so bad. He was getting so much hate, but he was only a 20-year-old kid. This is the age for most college sophomores and juniors, and here he is playing against 35-year-olds. And an underrated aspect, Nick, this Baltimore bullpen may just be the best in baseball. It is very, very good. Looking at all of these pitchers right here, they really do not have a single weakness. Led by closer Felix Bautista, standing at 6'8", 260 pounds, throwing 102-mile-per-hour sinkers at your knees. Missed all of last season with Tommy John surgery. He is now back into the equation. Keegan Aiken, the lefty in the bullpen. Gregory Soto, 98 miles per hour from the left side, who they acquired at last year's trade deadline with the Philadelphia Phillies. I like this Orioles team. I think they get in that second wild card spot. And to round up the American League, Nick, who is your third and final team that sneaks in?
The final remaining spot in the AL wild card goes to our team, the New York Yankees. I think they will sneak in there somehow. As we mentioned, the injuries are definitely going to be a huge factor going into this season. It's just a matter of how are they going to take it. Like once most of the players come back, minus Garrett Cole, how are they going to come out? Are they going to be able to win games? Is the pitching going to be clutch? Are the hitters going to get the hits when needed? I think they will, and I mean, I'm sure at some point they're going to have their dry spell of a losing, whether it's a losing streak or just as you know, Sebastian, they have those moments where the team can't figure out how to hit the ball. The pitchers, granted, we don't have Clay Holmes anymore, so hopefully, as far as games being blown by the relievers, won't be that way anymore. But in the end, I do see the Yankees just making it in there for the playoffs.
I like it. Mentioned Clay Holmes. Goodbye. Have fun with the Mets. I really do not care.
Nope, neither do I.
Clay Holmes. But Nick, we were talking outside about our teams. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be bold. I am changing my answer. I was originally on the Rangers train, but you have to be bold if you are going to have a sports show right here. I'm going with the Oakland Athletics. I like this Athletics team. They are very young. They made some moves. Gio Urshela, former Yankee, their third baseman, led by Lawrence Butler, 30-plus stolen bases last year. They got their ace pitcher, Luis Severino, one of the best closers in baseball, Mason Miller, throwing 103 miles per hour. This is a young team, not a lot of expectations. Let's have some fun. It's Major League Baseball opening day. I'm going with the Athletics. I think they take that last final spot and round it up. So now...
That's amazing. I never would have expected that, Sebastian.
You have to be bold. Have to be bold. But we are going to kick it off to the National League now. Those were our 6 teams from the American League. Nick, National League started off. Where do you want to go? You can East, Central, or West. I'll let you kick this thing off.
You know what? We're going to do it just like how we did with the American League. I'm going to kick things off with the National League East. Why not, Sebastian?
Go for it. Let's hear it.
All right. So for the National League East, I had 3 teams on my mind that could win the division. I have, of course, the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves. Last year, I don't think anybody expected the Mets to do what they did. They started out kind of like the Astros. They started off a little slow. I think they were like 0-5 to start the season, and then they ended up making it to the wild card and advancing all the way to the National League Championship Series, where they dropped in 6 games to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who of course became the champions from there. But as competitive as I think the Mets are going to be, especially with the new addition of Juan Soto, I have another team who I think is going to be winning this division. And to 3 people, C.J. Staniak, Thomas Gaffney Jr., and Vincent Pacone, if you guys are listening, I picked the Philadelphia Phillies to win the National League East Division.
Bold, Nick. Very bold. I like it, though. I like it. And that's exactly who I picked. I picked the Philadelphia Phillies. I think they are, again, underrated coming into the season. Looking at the playoffs last year, they got eliminated by the Mets in the National League East, but they have 8 out of those 9 starters returning, and the only new acquisition batting 5th and playing left field is Max Kepler, who was acquired from the Twins. But they have Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Alec Boehm. The starting rotation is still intact. Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola. The bullpen is a little bit suspect. They do have Jose Alvarado, Jordan Romano, who pitched for the Blue Jays. He was their closer for a while. But I like the Phillies. I think what separates them between the Mets is that starting rotation. So I think the Phillies take it over. I do think they win the National League East. And let's go to the Central. Nick, National League Central.
In the Central, this was a no-brainer for me, because in the last couple of years, not even couple years, honestly like 5 to 6 years, there has been one team that has definitely been the more dominant one in the National League Central, and that is the Milwaukee Brewers. I definitely see them making it, and not only making it to the playoffs, but once again clinching the division. Of course, we have some teams like, of course, as you mentioned, we mentioned this earlier, I think, Sebastian, you said the Cubs could definitely be contenders, and I think they definitely could. I think it'll be close, but in the end, I have the Brewers once again winning the National League Central.
I feel as if the Brewers, they're always scrappy. They have Christian Yelich. They always find a way. They are always kind of underrated going into the season. They claw back, they fight, they find a way, and they do end up making the playoffs. I like the Brewers. But I am going to go with the Chicago Cubs. I did mention it earlier. I like this Cubs team. They do have, right now, the worst record in Major League Baseball at a smooth 0-2, but we all know 160 games left to play for the Cubs. It's a long season, as you mentioned. There's no doubt every single team, you are going to go on a losing streak. You're going to struggle. The pitching won't be there. The hitters will have their slumps. You may get shut out 3 games in a row. But I like this Cubs team. Seiya Suzuki, your DH batting second. Ian Happ setting the tone. And the big acquisition, who is actually a finalist and I think could actually win National League MVP, is Kyle Tucker in that 3-hole from the Houston Astros. He's always a guy that can slug 30 home runs, hit in that 280 range. And we talk about that depth. Nico Horner, I'm a very big fan of him at second base. And Pete Crow Armstrong in center field. Young team, and only one player, 30 years old, and that's Seiya Suzuki. So similar to the Athletics, I think the Cubs are definitely better than the Athletics, but they are a young team. They have the weapons. So I'm going to take the Cubs in the National League Central. And let's round it up. Our division winner, the West. I think we have an idea, but Nick, let's say it anyways.
This one was once again a no-brainer for me. As we mentioned, the Cubs are so far 0-2 in the season, and they lost both games in the Tokyo series to a team that sounds vaguely familiar in the National League West, and that is the Los Angeles Dodgers, who started off the season 2-0, and again, they won the World Series last year with ease. Sorry for Yankee fans who had to hear that, but it's true, and now they're going into this season highly projected to go to the World Series, potentially win the World Series, and I would not be surprised. So I definitely have the LA Dodgers winning the division, and according to ESPN, they have projected the Dodgers to reach a record of 102-60, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised with that. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish with an even higher record than that, because a couple years ago, as we remember, they finished with 111 wins, I think back in 2022, and ESPN is actually ranking this Dodgers team that they have now better than even that Dodgers team a couple years ago. But they had projected them with 102 victories, and their odds of making the playoffs is rounded up to 98%, and their odds of making it to the World Series is 28%. So obviously, after seeing all these odds and seeing what the Dodgers have done with new additions like Blake Snell and Sasaki, as far as the pitching rotation, they got even stronger. Now they got Ohtani back pitching. This team is going to be unbelievable once again.
I think the only storyline, first of all, I have the Dodgers winning the West as well. I don't think anyone really comes close. I think the Padres, if they had a chance, they didn't even do much in free agency. Their own player, Manny Machado, star third baseman, came out and said he was disappointed in management because they did not do enough. But I think the only storyline and something that both of us will keep an eye on is if they can reach the modern MLB record, the 2003 Seattle Mariners, who finished that season 116-46, tying the modern MLB record, which also stands by the 1906 Chicago Cubs. So I think it's a matter of the Dodgers are definitely winning the West, but how much do they win it by, and do they potentially reach that mark? That would be very interesting. But that is going to round out the division winners. And Nick, before we go to a quick break, let's do it. Let's round out those wildcard teams.
So, for the National League wildcard teams, my first pick was the New York Mets. The other New York team, the team that shocked everyone last year, has now become big-time contenders who could definitely make some noise once again in the playoffs. I don't see them winning the division. Can it happen? Absolutely. But their pitching, it doesn't seem like it's as strong as the Phillies, and I think that's what's going to hurt them as far as in the regular season, and I think that's why the Phillies are going to win the division. But the Mets will make it into the wild card first spot.
I absolutely agree. I think that, as we said, what separates the Phillies and the Mets is that pitching rotation. But you cannot... I think Steve Cohen would run on the field and throw a punch at someone if they do not make the playoffs. He spent so much money and handed out the largest contract in North American sports history. Juan Soto, $765 million. The lineup is still very good. They re-signed Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Edwin Diaz at the back end of that bullpen, Ryan Stanek. I like the Mets. I think they do definitely get in. And it's okay if they don't win the division, because all that matters in Major League Baseball, it's not a one-game series. If you get hot at the right time and things start clicking on all levels, the Mets can be very scary. So I also have the Mets as that top wildcard spot. Kick it over to Nick, second wildcard spot.
second wild card spot, we have another National League East team, and that is the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, we've known for a couple of years now, we've seen the Braves and that they have been known for making the playoffs, whether they win the division or they make it to the wild card spot. 4 years ago, they were the World Series champions. They knocked down the Houston Astros, who were huge threats at that point to win the World Series, and they fell short to the Atlanta Braves. And since then, they've been pretty consistent as far as making the playoffs, whether they win the division or, as I said, squeaking into the wild card spots. So I'm going to pick the Atlanta Braves for my second wild card team.
Maybe we are both reading each other's minds, because I also am picking the Atlanta Braves. They are just too dominant. When Ronald Acuna Jr. gets healthy off that torn ACL and he gets inserted back into that potent lineup, they have to make it. Led by Jurickson Profar, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies. There aren't too many weaknesses with this Braves team. And led off by Ace, it seems as if he never ages, 36 years old, when Chris Sale is throwing 96-mile-per-hour bullets from the left side at a three-quarter arm slot. He's so dominant. Raisel Iglesias rounding out that bullpen. I am also taking the Braves. But Nick, will we get bold here? Let's find out. Third and final wild card spot. Let's do it.
I think I'm going to be bold with this one, but it's not going to be the same team, and I know that because you had mentioned this team already in the National League to win the division, and it's in the Central. And for those who don't remember, Sebastian picked the Chicago Cubs to win the National League Central, and I picked the Milwaukee Brewers. But I did pick the Chicago Cubs to make it to the wild card in that third and final spot. Originally, I had the Diamondbacks, but after giving it some thought, I picked the Cubs. They last reached the postseason in 2020, so it's been a couple years, 4 years since it's been since we've seen the Chicago Cubs in the playoffs. So I think they're due for it. They last won a postseason game in 2017. And of course, let's not forget the year before that, they won the World Series in 2016 for the first time in 116 years. And as we remember, the longest drought in baseball history, if I'm not mistaken, sports history. And that was amazing seeing that. Or no, it was 108 years, because it was 1908, and then they won in 2016. So, sorry for that confusion, everybody. So, 108 years, and it's been a while since we've seen something big from the Cubs, but I think this year they're going to make the playoffs.
I think baseball is always more fun when, in mid-July, the Cubs are playing well, the fans are filling up Wrigley Field. They are just a potent part of baseball history, so historic. Wrigley Field and Fenway Park for Boston, the oldest stadiums in Major League Baseball. But my final wildcard teams, I'm not going to get too bold here. I'm taking the Arizona Diamondbacks. They were the runner-up.
We almost were exact.
We almost were, but I'm taking the team, the runner-up in the 2024 World Series. They're still good. They are a gritty team led by Corbin Carroll. I always think this guy is much older, only 24 years old. He is someone just running around the bases, hitting 300, stealing 25 bases. In this starting rotation, man, I love the way that the Diamondbacks have filled out this rotation. Zach Gallen, New Jersey native, shout out to Zach Gallen, and Corbin Burns, the big acquisition, the ace for the Baltimore Orioles last season. They went out and got him free agency in December. I really do like this Diamondback team's. Similarly, as you mentioned, I didn't pick them, but the Brewers, a gritty team. I think it's time for the Diamondbacks, the snakes in the division. Go out and get it. I don't know if they'll take down the Dodgers. Maybe. Probably not. But I do have the Diamondbacks securing that third and final wildcard spot. And man, Nick, time really does fly.
It certainly does.
When you are having fun talking about Major League Baseball, we are going to take a quick break. And when Nick and I return, we will be looking at the latest NFL moves in free agency, because although it is the offseason, there is a lot to talk about. You are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair and we will be right back. Stay tuned. We are back here on the Sports Corner. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. And Nick, shifting over to the National Football League, I am going to designate you because as Steelers fans, we are still, I don't even know if I can say patiently anymore, still awaiting the news of quarterback Aaron Rodgers. What is he going to do? Hopefully, so Nick, I'm going to give you a big task. You are going to be Mr. Adam Schefter. If there is any breaking news that you have to report to us, cut me off at any point and give it to us. Does that sound all right?
That sounds all right to me.
Cool. So we are going to talk about some local news because although the big period where a lot of free agents signs and it kind of dies down a little bit, it dwindles, we still have some tough stuff to talk about because the New York Giants, the local team, about 10 minutes from campus here at Montclair State University, have made some two big quarterback acquisitions. Nick, I'll let you take this one away. All
right. Is my name Nick or Adam this time around? Adam Schefter.
We can call. I'm trying to think. Nadam or Cadam. We'll call you Adam for the show.
Okay. Well, obviously, as Sebastian just mentioned, we are still awaiting the news of Aaron Rodgers, but there have been a lot of other quarterback news, specifically for the New York Giants. And shout out to New York Giants fans who have been waiting for some kind of big moment like this, because you acquired not one, but two new quarterbacks in your system. That first one being Jameis Winston, who signed with the Giants last week. And, of course, as we know, he has played for three other teams in the past. He started off his career with the Tampa Bay Bucks from 2015 to 2019. He was on the New Orleans Saints from 2020 to 2023, was with the Browns for 1 year, and now he has signed a contract with the New York Giants, moving on from Cleveland to technically New Jersey. Even though it's the New York Giants, it is in New Jersey, here in East Rutherford. But this is a great move for the Giants. He was a 2015 Pro Bowler, so he hasn't been in the Pro Bowl in 10 years. He was a passing yards leader. Back in college, though, he is no stranger. In 2013, he was the Heisman Trophy winner and AP College Football Player of the Year. So the dude's got talent, and he showed his talents with the Cleveland Browns. So there's definitely some stuff in him. He's 31. He's getting up there, but he still can do some amazing things, I believe, as a quarterback. And I think now the question is, can he do that with the New York Giants? What do you think, Sebastian?
Well, first off, I have to say this may be the most fun quarterback room in the NFL. I think Jameis Winston is going to have a blast. Such a great guy. And the upside is definitely there. But again, what has plagued Jameis Winston and has caused him to be a career backup, basically, is the interceptions. He just can't seem to shy away from them. And Nick, I couldn't believe just looking at Winston's stats last night. In 2019, he threw 30 interceptions.
Wow.
That is very insane. 5,000 passing yards. But as I do have my complaints about him a little bit, but Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin said it best. It's statistically more probable the less you turn the ball over and you keep it in your hands and secure it, the more likely you are to win. Now, Jameis Winston, he does have some weapons. I think if that running game gets going with Tyrone Tracy, Malik Neighbors. But the biggest question to me is, what do the Giants do at number 3 overall in the draft now? They have their options. Before they went out and signed the next guy that we are going to talk about, I was a big fan of them. You take Shedeur Sanders, 3 overall. I think Cam Ward goes number 1 to the Titans. You have Shedeur Sanders sit behind Jameis Winston, maybe not for the entirety of the year, but for most of the year. But Jameis Winston, the upside is definitely there. We've seen the gunslinger arm. He can throw it around through a plethora of players. But can he keep those turnovers at a minimum? Because you are going to have to win some close games in a division with Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, 2 of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. When it's crunch time, is Jameis Winston going to be able to lead you 80 yards down the field without throwing an interception? Only time will tell. But Jameis Winston, 2 years, $8 million to the New York Giants. And Nick, I don't know if this next move by the Giants necessarily pains me, but it's definitely bittersweet. Russell Wilson has signed a 1-year, $29 million contract with the New York Giants, and he stated in his opening press conference yesterday he expects to be the starter. First, I do have to ask you this. If you are Jameis Winston, do you feel backstabbed a little bit? I mean, you get signed without probably knowing that Russell Wilson is going to be signed a week later. You expect, I don't know if to be the starter, definitely he should have expected to mentor a rookie, but now Russell Wilson comes in, and if the Giants go with Shedeur Sanders at 3 overall, and Shedor's dad, Dion, I know he doesn't have a say, but he would love for Shedeur to end up in the Big Apple. I don't know, if you were Jameis Winston, do you feel backstabbed right here?
I might, honestly, because they got Jameis Winston first, making everybody think, okay, well, he's probably going to be the starter, or on top of that, they're going to draft a quarterback. Now on top of that, you get 36-year-old Russell Wilson. So now you wonder, so now you got Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, who's going to be the starter. So now they're going to have to fight for the position during the offseason. And on top of that, who knows what they're going to do in the draft. And that is the other question, as you mentioned, Sebastian. Like, are they going to end up drafting another quarterback? I don't know. I mean, you got 2 Pro Bowlers right off the bat in the last week or so in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. And of course, Russell Wilson, not to mention, is a Super Bowl champion, so he has that experience in the playoffs. He's now a 10-time Pro Bowler after his 1 season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So as far as what they're going to do in the draft, it's going to be really interesting if they still end up going with Sanders' son, or they go after another QB. So as far as that, I guess only time will tell with what the New York Giants are going to do in the draft.
The thing with Russell Wilson, 36 years old, I'm not sure at this age he really wants to be a part of a rebuild, and that's kind of the situation he is stepping into with the Giants. A lot of pressure for sure. Giants owner Mara said that he retained head coach Brian Daboll and general manager Joe Sheen, but the pressure's on. The Giants haven't been to the playoffs since 2022. They overachieved that year, where they defeated the Minnesota Vikings in the wild card round with now Indianapolis Colts starting quarterback Daniel Jones. So it's a new system. In terms of who would be the better mentor, I think it's definitely Russell Wilson. He has the experience. He's won more than Jameis Winston. But again, Russell Wilson, we've seen him. He was brought into Pittsburgh last season to do one thing and one thing only: help this passing attack, and more importantly, end the playoff drought. And when the Steelers started 10-3 and defeated the Commanders, where he threw that game-winning touchdown pass to wide receiver Mike Williams, all looked well for Pittsburgh. It actually looked like they were going to win the AFC North. They were 10-3 at that point. They lost 4 straight. They ended the season 10-7, and they crumbled in the playoffs. Now Russell Wilson is stepping into a situation with a poor O-line, not much there, and he doesn't really have a true wide receiver too. Darius Slayton, he's serviceable for sure, but that's why now do the Giants take Travis Hunter at 3 overall, who can play wide receiver and cornerback? I don't know. I don't think Russell Wilson is necessarily in the best situation, because if he does not play well, Brian Daboll is not going to extend that leash long enough, especially if there is a rookie quarterback waiting in the wings. And with his job on the line, Daboll does not have that luxury to wait around and see what Russell Wilson has in store for this offense. He's older, the mobility is definitely down, but he is a Super Bowl champion. I think he is a great mentor, and he always says the right things. He's a great guy, but only time will tell. But Russell Wilson is the 2025 starting quarterback for the New York Giants. And the last free agent acquisition that we are going to talk about is, jumping back over to the AFC, is with the New England Patriots. They have acquired wide receiver Stephon Diggs, formerly of the Houston Texans, and the Buffalo Bills, to a 3-year, $69 million deal. And Drake May goes out there and acquires his wide receiver 1, gets his guy to throw him the football. They came into the offseason with the most cap space available, over $100 million in cap space. And Drake May, the starting quarterback for the Patriots, he gets his guy. Nick, how do we feel about this?
This was definitely an interesting one. I did not see this coming because here's a guy in Stefon Diggs who, as we know, he's a solid wide receiver, and he's 31 years old. He's young in age, and he's a 4-time Pro Bowler, a receptions leader, a receiving yards leader. So the guy has put up some good numbers in past years, and he started with the Vikings, then went to the Bills for a couple years. Then last year he was on the Houston Texans, who did pretty well. They ended up winning the division. They were the 4 seed, and they ended up winning big time against the Chargers. And I think most people thought the Chargers were actually going to win that game, even though the Chargers were the underdog. But the Texans ended up winning 32-12, blowing out the LA Chargers in that game, and then of course losing to the Chiefs. So they made it all the way to the divisional round, and then he went to the Patriots, who are still in a rebuilding unit. And I didn't expect that, because he's already got a team that could be very competitive in the playoffs, and the Patriots still have, I'd say, at least maybe a couple more years to be competitive again. But for the Patriots, at least, that was a great move for them. But definitely didn't expect this from Stefon Diggs. But it's going to be interesting going into next year, as we are now about to see Stefon Diggs in a New England Patriots uniform.
Drake May, he gets his wide receiver, and I think Stefon Diggs, I don't want to call him a diva, but he was a little frustrated and publicly said that he was upset that former Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick kind of made wide receiver Nico Collins the guy in Houston, and then Stefon Diggs had to take a seat back because he became the wide receiver too. But he steps into a situation under a new offense, new offensive coordinator, Demario Douglas, who I like. I think he's very good, an underrated receiver, very crafty at maneuvering his routes. He's your wide receiver 2. Stefon Diggs is your wide receiver 1, and Drake May gets his guy. But Nick, before we close off in the sports corner, I have to shift back to baseball because I am so excited. I have one question for you. Are you ready?
Yes, sir, I am ready.
Joe Buck will be announcing the Yankees-Brewers game for the first time calling baseball since 2021. One question. Do you think Joe Buck is a good baseball announcer?
Absolutely. I have always been a huge fan of Joe Buck's announcing, especially in the playoffs, with his famous, back at the track, at the wall, and it's gone. So I can't wait to hear that once again. Joe Buck, welcome back to MLB.
I love Joe Buck. He's awesome. A prominent voice in baseball. So good, so historic. It's going to be great hearing him again. And then Michael Kay, the rest of the crew, Paul O'Neill, David Cohn on the Yes Network. So much going on in the sports world. It is almost April. So much to talk about. I am Sebastian Stratton, joined alongside my always amazing co-host, Nick Supa. We are going to sign off for now. You are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. We will be back next week for more sports talk. Have a great day, and happy Major League Baseball opening day, everyone.